down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I am your, we'll just call it lovable host, Rick. I was watching the chat. It's kind of fun. I'm going to tell you, it's really fun to be on this side of it, just to sit here and look and see, when people start coming in to the different outlets that I have, which of course, just to remind everybody, I am still streaming on YouTube. I stream on Facebook. I stream on Twitter. And of course, my all-time favorite, Rumble. And I added, a couple weeks ago, I added Twitch to that as well. And so I enjoy looking at it. Now, I have an aggregator program that basically takes all of the chats. And last week, it wasn't working for Twitch. That's been fixed. It's now working for Twitch. And I can actually see all of the different chats all combined under one roof. Well, the funny thing is to watch some of the comments that as they come in, and a couple of the comments that popped up, and I can't show them right now, but a couple of the comments that came in were, let's see, 3 Chevy when he was on Rumble, because he actually, I think, pops over onto Twitch as well. But 3 Chevy, when he was on Rumble, he goes, when he thinks I drink, which is a modification of my motto, which is when I drink, I think. So anyway, I saw that and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is nice. I like that. And then there was another one here that was saying, Fat Paws over on Rumble says, amen to the drink. So yeah, and it looks like a few people are getting ready for some serious snowstorms out there as well. So, I do appreciate you guys coming, over and watching the program. Okay. So tonight, let's get the first things first out of the way. Tonight, I am drinking my Redbreast 12 Irish whiskey, single pot still. I don't have that much. Oh, you can't really see it because it's a dark green and the green effect that I use. Anyway, I don't have that much left in the glass or in the bottle. By that, I mean, I probably have maybe another 2-3 glasses maybe left in this. But that's okay. I like it. I like that, and I like the Four Roses, of course, and I like the Crown Black that was graciously passed on to me. So, but anyway, so that's what I'm drinking tonight, just for the moment, because again, I have my favorites. The other thing is that I want to say to Amy Jean Viner over on Rumble, she comes in all the time as one of the first one or two people that pop in, and I made a comment to her in the beginning where I said that I always get a smile on my face whenever I see her pop in. Between her and Outlaw Dogs, they kind of fight for whoever gets the quote front row center. But it's kind of funny to watch, and I enjoy it. It makes me feel really good knowing that there are people out there who not only want to take, but actually take the time to come and hang out, not only on the lives, but also check out my videos outside of the lives. Like, I know a couple of people who can't come on the Wednesday night programs, and so they watch the show afterward, and that's just amazing to me, just because of the fact that, I mean, I'm literally, in the grand scheme of things, I am literally a speck of dust on the back of a flea, on the back of a dog, on the back of the world, okay? I am like very, 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 very small in comparison to all of these other wonderful things. that are out there. And I am so grateful that all of you are here, all of my subscribers. I'm still sitting at 450 over on Rumble. I hit 100 on YouTube. Facebook, I am getting close to 400 followers on Facebook, so that's cool. And then, of course, Twitch is a brand new one. So I am just, I am just really, really, really appreciative of all of you, and I think it really fits with the season and everything else, is that we all need to be appreciative of what we have. So yeah. Anyway, all right, moving on here. I have a couple of opinion pieces that I want to share with you tonight, as well as a few other articles that are not so much related, but a few other articles that I just want to share with you if I get the time. I have a fantastic pet of the week tonight, and this one is literally a lion-hearted animal for tonight, and I'll show you that a little bit later in the program. But first, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about my alternative endeavor called True Grit Roots Network. True Grit Roots Network champions independent artists while paying respect to the pioneers who shaped modern roots music, featuring outlaw country, blues, and rock with a unique twist of urban that is carefully selected and purposely put together. We are the radio highway that connects the back roads, highways, and city streets to your favorite dance hall, roadhouse, and juke joint. TGRN provides original, exclusive programming and interviews that are produced and hosted by our own team of DJs, hosts, and personalities. Find us on the web at tgrn.net to download our app in the App Store and from Google Play. Alternatively, you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of internet digital radio stations and through the Live 365 app as well. You can also play our station on your Amazon Alexa by saying, "Play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Be sure to include the word "from" in the command. Play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Live 365 is also now on Roku as well, so you can find us and stream us through your television too. Breaking boundaries for authentic roots radio, True Grit Roots Network, tgrn.net, Austin, Texas. And as I stated before, TGRN is a endeavor that I am in as well. So honestly, that's I just got to tell you. All right, now there's a big push, and I don't know if anybody has really seen this, but there's been a really, really big push from the left in the last several years. And the reason why I kind of say this, there was a couple of opinion pieces that popped in Townhall, and most of the time I don't do opinion pieces, mainly just because they are literally that, opinion. I would much rather give you my opinion based on the facts that are being presented to me within a actual article that has been based on facts or something along those lines, or to obviously call out what the left is doing within the news media and the mainstream media. However, these two pieces really, really hit home to me because they kind of accentuate the situation that we're in within today's world. And so I want to again, I want to iterate that these are these people's opinions. I'm going to read both of them. Hopefully I'll be able to get through them fairly quickly. But I really want you to take note of the poignant messages that are being put out by these opinion pieces. So this first one, as I move over, this first one is from Kevin McCullough. He published it in Townhall on December 11th, and I just got to read it to you because again, it really kind of hit home for me. It's called The Crumbling States of America. And by the way, the links to get these pieces are in the description of the show. You can go and take a look and grab the links if you want to grab a copy of these for yourself and read them later. But Kevin McCullough writes, if you've taken notice of the condition of our nation's soul recently, you've noticed we're in deep trouble. I'm not referring to a casual loss for a Senate seat in the second consecutive runoff in Georgia in 3 years, nor am I referring to the divide and dominate approach that the left has employed with literally the smallest margins and the tightest divides in American political history. I'm referring to the essence of who we are as a people and why we aren't what we thought we were. More importantly, the things preventing us from becoming the nation we need to appear to be out of our reach. Add to this the reality that corruption is more deeply embedded part of the process than ever before, and we are quickly slipping down the icy backside of the mountains towards the landing place in the utter abyss. Consider our values. In the first 24 hours following the announcement of the release of Brittany Griner, nearly every pundit in the media kowtowed to the obligatory, don't get me wrong, anytime we get an American back, I'm happy. So we're supposed to be thrilled that someone who hates us as much as her captors did got released instead of a Marine who served his country with dignity? Not only that, just hours after calling out gun owners across the country, Mr. Biden released a gun-selling ghoulish villain who equally hates America. My national security sources tell me they believe that said terrorist, Mr. Bout, is already on his way to see action in Ukraine against the interest and resources we have invested in trying to keep Ukraine free. And side note on that, that has also been confirmed by a couple of other articles that have come out since this opinion piece came out. All right, back to the piece. So forget about the sad speeches of Biden claiming children are dying at the hands of guns and instead welcome home a freakishly talented basketball player who's been convicted of domestic abuse, has a chemical dependency, and just hates her nation. She hates it enough to at least protest it by refusing to acknowledge the national anthem. Consider the responses. Like the armed forces we humiliated in Afghanistan, we left a Marine behind in Russia. A man who has been detained for nearly 4 times as long as Griner was. Within a single day, Russian news chat programs were discussing our unfathomable decision to take the basketball player and asserted that one of the reasons the Marine was left behind was due to his heterosexuality. They were saying it out loud. In the next breath, they praised the ghoul for being a hero and how happy they were to have him home. Meanwhile, stateside, Karine Jean-Pierre gaslights the American media by telling us that it was the basketball player or no one. This is a flat-out falsehood if the now scrubbed original NBC report was true, showing that the administration was given their choice of the two. Unconfirmed reports also state that the administration never even asked about Whelan. By the weekend, Rebecca Koffler, author of Putin's Playbook, is confirming to my listeners that Putin desperately wanted Bout back and that he will likely receive a battlefield command in Ukraine in short order. And for a cherry on the sundae, Koffler revealed Putin's already planning more prisoner swap proposals. One of, in her estimation, would yield equally good prospects for the Russians and equally poor ones for the U.S. KT McFarland, a former Pentagon official for multiple administrations, including President Trump, revealed the reason it went down the way it did. No one is afraid of the U.S., the national security expert confirmed. She also recounted of how all the bad actors feared Trump. Putin had zero invasion of neighbors. Kim Jong-un ceased bad behavior. Iran was out of the nuclear deal, and Xi Jinping watched as Trump carried out a missile strike enforcing his red line in the sand in Syria. The American left believes the way we get America to be more liked in the global community is to disarm our strengths, expose our weaknesses, and allow our enemies to walk all over us. The last 3 years have proven textbooks on that theory in being the opposite of the truth. When America is feared, respected for our strength, the entire globe becomes safer. America's image has been crumbling since Biden took office. With failure after failure, much of it now lies in shambles at the feet of those who wish us ill. President Trump put the world on notice as president, his focus would be to protect America and provide for her common good. In doing so, much of the rest of the world benefited from his policies. Mr. Biden believes only in the protection of his inner circle and in figuring out a way, as the big guy, they can provide for his common good. Our union is crumbling, our borders are smashed, and our respect has been obliterated. No one fears America. Therefore, evil runs wild. And with corruption embedded so deeply into the ability of the people to elect the persons of their own choice, i.e. Maricopa County, Arizona, allowing 294,000 plus votes to be counted that had no persons attached to the ballot, the outlook seems dire. What the circumstance requires is a fighter, a builder, and someone who stands up to our enemies and for our way of life. In other words, the exact opposite of what incompetent buffoons currently in charge offer. They cannot, this piece is basically spot on with just about everything that, was said here. Now, my biggest thing obviously is the fact that, yes, I do think that Americans, those that love America, should be placed above anyone else in terms of coming to this country, and especially veterans should be placed above anyone else who is trying to come to this country. Now, there's a reason why Bout was not traded under the Trump administration for Whalen. And the reason for that is because Bout is actually more dangerous to us being outside of the U.S. and being free than he would have been being behind bars in our prisons. Now, reportedly, he would have gotten out in 2029. But I'm sorry, that's 2029. This is 2022. He would have had 7 more years in prison than what he currently has. And reportedly, it is correct. He is headed toward the front lines in Ukraine. The guy is pure evil, pure arms deal, pure whatever. And now we also have a challenge here in terms of the fact that now that he's gone and is gone away and gone out to his, wherever he's going to go, it's going to be doubly hard for us to try and pick him up again because he's going to be expecting it. There's a lot of complications when it comes to Americans being elsewhere. And one of the things that has helped to prevent Americans from being picked up by other nation states and even other non-nation states that wish us ill is the fact that, number one, we've held for a very long time up until, I don't know when, I don't know who was the first one, but I know Bergdahl is the one that comes to mind. We've held for a very long time that we don't negotiate, that we do not bother to give in to the demands of these people. And believe it or not, the power of deterrence and the idea that they are not going to be able to get America to kowtow and to give them what they want, is a huge deterrent in deciding to take someone, no matter who it is, into trying to, take it like an American citizen or even somebody like Brittany Griner. With Whalen is charged with espionage. So I can kind of understand where he is a little bit different case. However, at the same time, though, there's no reason why we can't try to negotiate to bring him back. So So yeah, it's just, this is a really tough situation in terms of the Brittany Griner situation. But that being said, again, looking at, you know, her track record and what she's doing, if she doesn't want to be in America anyway, what is she even doing here? And I've always asked that question. If people hate America so much and want to change it, then why are you even here? Why don't you go someplace else where you will be happy instead of trying to force that change upon the rest of the country? Why don't you just move and go elsewhere? See, the sad part about it is that for me as a patriotic American, guess what? I don't have any other place to go. Ronald Reagan said it best. If America falls, there is no place else to go. There is no shining beacon of light elsewhere. If there was, then maybe it wouldn't be as appealing to all of these people to come to this location. If America falls, America, that light, that lighthouse in the sea that is guiding you toward a better place, is gone. So, you know, I mean, why we, you know, seriously, why we don't fight harder, why we have politicians who want to appease and capitulate and don't fight harder for our American ideals and principles is completely beyond me. Because of the fact that, again, we are the only shining light that is out there. So I wanted to bring this to you and, you know, show this to you, but also on a related note, there's another one here. And this one in particular, this piece in particular that I'm about to show you, has to deal with the erosion of our values as well. In particular, the attack on the Constitution. And this also comes from Townhall as well. And this one here, and I actually have to find it so I can actually see it. There it is. This one comes from Scott Hoganson, also published on December 11th, which is kind of interesting as to why both of these ended up in the situation that they did. But the left's backdoor attack on the Constitution. And again, this is from Scott Hoganson. Authoritarians despise the U.S. Constitution because it is an impediment to their goals. It is routinely decried by the American left as a scrap of paper written by a bunch of dead white guys that is no longer relevant. Ergo, it must be eliminated. But scuttling the Constitution is a pretty heavy political lift. Most Americans reflexively believe the Constitution is a good thing and would be wary of those arguing to get rid of it. So, to achieve this goal, the American left has taken a different approach. America was founded as a Judeo-Christian nation, and the Constitution relies on many principles first articulated during the Reformation. Freedom of speech, religion, conscience, self-preservation, and other key aspects of our Constitution spring from the writings of Martin Luther, John Calvin, and other Reformation leaders. But the biblical underpinnings of the Constitution are not simply fundamental to our founding. They are fundamental to our continued national existence. John Adams understood this when he wrote to the Massachusetts militia in October of 1798. Quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other." The smarter totalitarians among us have carefully studied the American founding and have discovered a backdoor means of negating the Constitution. They're doing so by persuading Americans to be immoral, amoral, and irreligious. It's working. When Bill Clinton was first elected president, the Gallup survey found that 70% of Americans were members of a church or synagogue. By 2021, that figure dropped to 47%. That's a startling decline in the number of people who engage in corporate worship. There are myriad ways in which people are dissuaded from practicing their faith, and the biggest target is Christianity. A group of Christians was recently denied service at a Richmond, Virginia restaurant for the crime of believing in the Bible. A few hours north of Richmond in Fairfax County, Virginia, schools want to indoctrinate children with the false idea that biological sex is assigned at birth. Is quote unquote assigned at birth. Okay. It is a more subtle means of undermining the biblical truth that God created man in his own image. Male and female, he created them. These are just a few current examples of a trend that has grown in recent years. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops records no less than 172 episodes of arson, vandalism, and other violent acts against their churches since May of 2020. What we are seeing here is a totalitarian two-step. If the American left can't dump the Constitution because they don't like it, they will intimidate Americans into surrendering their faith. When we become a nation that is no longer moral or religious, the Constitution becomes inadequate, as Adams warned. It is an insidious strategy for fundamentally changing the United States, and it's succeeding. It succeeds because our culture is increasingly infused with various forms of anti-Christianity. We are bombarded by it in cinema, the news media, music, education, and even public policy and law. Lori Smith, a website designer in Colorado, is fighting a state law that demands she surrender her Christian belief that marriage is an institution involving one man and one woman. She is forced to argue before the U.S. Supreme Court for the right to believe and practice that which Barack Obama believed 14 short years ago. Side note, that is also the same time that our current resident-in-chief and the basement dummy was also believing that marriage was between one man and one woman. He is, there's a video out that he is on Meet the Press in 2006 explaining that exact thing. All right, back to the piece. All of this is happening because to undermine Christianity is to undermine the Constitution. It paves the way for a totalitarian America that reflects elements of the evil, authoritarian civic constructs that litter history, and it must be resisted. This can be achieved through the courts, like Smith is doing. It can be fought through civic engagement, like parents in Fairfax County are doing. It can be challenged through public denunciation, like the Richmond Christian group has done. None of this is easy, and the American left is diligent in violently marginalizing those with whom they disagree. But Christians can find the inspirations to resist in Scripture. 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ knew this would happen, and he minced no words in saying so. The Gospel of John records Jesus telling his disciples, "If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you." The notion of being the object of hatred may not be entirely inspirational, but the result of being true to the faith is. The epistle to the Hebrews tells us that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not yet seen. This message to the Hebrews parallels that of the founders who crafted a constitution to assure the citizens of a new nation that we may have the conviction of things hoped for, yet things not yet seen in our country. That's why the Constitution is more relevant today than ever. It is our only assurance that America may continue forming a more perfect union. Now, the thing about this piece that really kind of caught my eye is, first of all, obviously the discussion about how America is fundamentally a Judeo-Christian nation. You can't, I'm sorry, anybody that studies history or that has looked at the discussions, the Federalist Papers, those types of documents, part of our founding documents, and even looked at some of the wording of the things that we have in our founding documents, cannot, under any circumstances, logically deny that we are not a Judeo-Christian nation. We have been that way ever since our founding. The entire group of people that came here, even though they were separated by some of their religious beliefs, they were united in the fact that we all came from some type of creator, that we all had inalienable rights endowed to us by our creator that no man-built government could take away. Those rights were enumerated originally in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, even though there was talk that they were saying, well, these rights innately should be, we shouldn't have to declare them. And they did anyway, which is part of the reason why the left, in terms of their viewpoint, they feel like government is giving you those rights. But in actuality, those rights were already ordained to us by our creator, whatever creator you feel like you should be following. But the point here is that it is intelligent design that these people believed occurred. They felt and believed that governments of men were designed to essentially ensure that our rights given to us by God were protected and maintained. That's why the Constitution is designed to put up guardrails against the federal government. They also believed that local governments held more power than those farther and farther away. So the thing about this is that, we have to come to grips once again, with the idea and the truth that America is a Judeo-Christian nation. And without those foundational principles that we have built through the idea of a religious belief in a creator, we lose our country. And we're already on the way there, because if you look at everything that the left has been doing, and I'm not talking about the middle of the road left, I'm talking about the far leftists. If you look at everything that they're doing, they're attacking our kids, they're attacking our schools, they've attacked Hollywood. All of the media that we consume is all controlled by many leftist corporations. There's some organizations like the Daily Wire that are beginning to hit back. But the fact of the matter is that we are under attack from a very evil force that is turning this country into something that it was never intended to be. And what John Adams said is correct, that the Constitution is for a moral and religious people. Because without those morals and standards, you get people like Joe Biden, who basically want to use the Constitution as toilet paper. And this is what we are facing. This is what we are forced to have to deal with right now. But we need to take heart. We need to, understand within ourselves that we have the power. We just need to use it. And I know it's tough, especially when you're the only person standing alone in the wilderness, to stand up to somebody who seems to have force and the numbers on their side. But we need to stand up to these people, and we need to make sure that they understand that they can't push us around anymore. They cannot push us around anymore, which is why I encourage you to support independent content creators like myself, independent news outlets like the new free press that was just put together by Barry Weiss, the Daily Wire, people like Dan Bongino, Mark Kay, so on and so forth, who are trying and attempting to get the word out into all of our society. And we need to focus our efforts on things locally and get, local stuff taken care of. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. So we had a local incident happen I think it was at least a month and a half ago or something like that, where it was at a football game. And there was a claim of a racist slur being used against a individual of a certain ethnic persuasion in the bathroom. And then also there was subsequent claims, that it wasn't just in the bathroom, that it was all over, that it was the entire football team, that there were, racist slurs being said in the stands. One of the challenges that you have with something like that, first of all, is the fact that the news media, regardless of who it is, they don't bother to adhere to the Dan Bongino rule, which is wait 72 hours for the truth to come out. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is it caught the eye of a local paper person, and they went ahead and wrote a story, which of course was mostly false. There was a huge investigation, and it has since come to light that while there is evidence that the possibility of that slur being utilized in two separate specific instances, there is no methodology by which those individuals could actually be identified and, of course, subsequently punished. But the key is that the damage was already done. And one of the principles that our nation is founded on is the fact that you are innocent until proven guilty. That if someone accuses you of something, they have the burden of proof on them to prove that you were the one who did it. And if they can't prove it, then you are supposed to be absolved of any wrongdoing. Now, the challenge here is that we've walked away from that. In fact, in the world of the Me Too movement, it's now just the mere appearance of impropriety automatically assumes that you are the perpetrator, no matter what. And we need to get away from that. Ronald Reagan said that we need to restore the American precept that it's not a group of individuals who do things, that it is the perpetrator who did it, not the group of individuals. Because what happened in this particular incident, unbeknownst to most people, the entire community got accused of being a bunch of racist. And I can tell you for a fact that we are far from that. But the damage is already done. It's already been put out there. And regardless of what anybody thinks, you can't go back and take something like that away. Okay? You cannot go back and remove the hurtful words that are being sent and stated and said and talked about on social media and news outlets and all of these other places. This is why we need to be very, very cognizant of the words that we use and the methodology in which we deliver them. We need to understand that there are times where jumping to the wrong conclusion can actually do more damage than getting the right conclusion. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is we are stepping away from our American values and our principles. The principles of truth, honor, duty, justice. These are all things that we should aspire to, yet the left is tearing us down. The left is attempting to tear us down, but we should have faith. We need to ensure that people like yourselves, like myself, that we all support one another in the face of this particular storm. All right, so like I said, go and take a look if you want to reread them. I've got the links in the description. So let me go ahead and it's about time. Let me go ahead and do the, let's do Pet of the Week. Oh, shoot. Here we go again. So I thought I fixed that.
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
Yeah, I thought I had fixed that hotkey. Looks like I've got some work to do over the break. All right, so, I do not see our submitter in the chat. I have not seen her in. So for those of you that have been around and hang around with me, I've said it. I've even said it on this show. I personally don't believe that anything under 30 pounds is a dog. However, there are certain breeds of dogs that actually make up for their physical weight and size with attitude. And tonight's submission definitely makes it up with attitude. I'd like to bring to your attention the small yet fierce little dog named Sassy Pants, submitted by Dawn, aka Daybreak 3. A little Chihuahua. Now, according to Dawn, this is a rescue, and she told me big dog because she's making a joke over my whole thing about, 30 pounds, not a dog, kind of thing. But according to Dawn, she basically says that, yes, Sassy Pants has earned her name. And she didn't give me any details, but I can tell you just by looking at the photo, she is a attitude gone wild. You can see just by the stance, she is, powerful, and she sounds like she's, she looks like, I'm sorry, not sounds like, but she looks like she's got one ear up, one ear down. She's waiting for trouble, and she's ready to pounce if necessary. And so this is Sassy Pants. And again, submitted by Day, and that is the pet of the week this week. Do me a favor, if you'd like to get your pet on the program, I do have a bunch already in here, and yes, yes, Amy, they do have Napoleonic syndrome. I agree. Like I said on the program a while ago, the one and only time I've ever been bit by a dog, I was actually bit by a Chihuahua on my pinky. And yes, it did draw blood, or drew blood. But anyway, as I was saying, if you want to go ahead and submit your pet for Pet of the Week, you can go ahead and do so at my email address, fans, that's FANS, or spelled phonetically, Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra, at whiskeymusings.online. Don't worry, the link is in the show notes or in the description of the videos. You can go and take a look there. Fans at whiskeymusings.online. And you can submit, send me your picture, give me a background, name, breed, whatever kind of story you want. I have also been known to embellish stories a little bit. So if you give me kind of an idea, I might come up with something creative for your pet. But that is this week's Pet of the Week. I do know that I have, I think, 3 or 4 right now. So if you submit soon, I will, go ahead and put it into rotation, but just keep in mind that it might be a little bit before you get there. Also, I do a segment on Saturday called Questions for Whiskey, and the Questions for Whiskey also goes to fans at sorry, whoops, wrong one. That's Miss Sassy Pants. You're right. So anyway, I can also do a Questions for Whiskey on Saturday night, which it basically is you submit my question, then I answer it. If I don't know the answer, I'll go and research it and try to come up with an answer for you, a good answer. So, and yes, I embellish occasionally. Yes, no way. Yeah, I know. I do. I embellish. There's just, you got to sometimes with these little guys. You really do. So thank you to Dawn for sharing Little Miss Sassy Pants. I will have to make sure that she is aware that she is in that in the video for tonight. All right. And by the way, unlike the Pet of the Week, I do not have a question for Saturday. So yes, that is correct, buddy. If you have one, send it. Otherwise, I will just continue on without it. Now, in terms of questions, there was a question actually on the Mark Kaye Show. As you know, I am a avid Mark Kaye Show, a Mark Kaye Show watcher. I love Mark, and I love Hannah, and I love Jay. All three of them. I thank them for coming on my program. You can catch their interviews on some of my videos that are out on both Rumble and YouTube. Great videos. So that was cool. And anyway, there was a question today, and it had to deal with what the Oath Keepers are all about. Now, one of the things about the Oath Keepers is that the Oath Keepers originally were an organization where they were made up of people, kind of like the 3 Percenters in a way, where they were made up of people who were patriots, who believed in the Constitution, and also believed that their oath of office that they took, in my case, it was a Army oath of enlistment, still applies. And this is true. This is really true because as a part of your departure from the military, in my case, at the time, there was no documentation. There was nothing that indicated that the oath that I took was no longer valid, that it was null and void, because it is a promise that you make. And I'm going to point this out, but it is a promise that you make to the Almighty. So I thought tonight I would go ahead and bring up the Oath of Enlistment and have you folks see it while I read it. And really take note of the words that have been put into this Oath of Enlistment. Now, keep in mind, there is a difference between the Oath of Enlistment and the Officers' Corps. There's also a slight difference between what the Senate states, as well as what the Senate states, as well as what the President states. There are some differences. But what the President says and what the Senate says are actually slightly defined in the Constitution. The President's is actually written out, but the Senate is referred to as they need to state that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So let me bring this up for you so you guys can see it. And I got to get it. Where is it? Here we go. There it is. So this is the current Oath of Enlistment. And it's basically, it goes, I, state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Think about that. I solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You also notice that in this statement, it doesn't say, for as long as I'm enlisted. It doesn't actually provide you with any kind of a time frame. And then, of course, you end it by saying, so help me God. So you are basically saying to your Creator, in this particular case, that you are making a promise. Now, promises are not broken very much, at least not by people with principles and with values. And this is why I keep saying that even though I've departed from the military, my oath of enlistment never expires. That I am supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That is what I'm here to do. That's what I'm doing every night when I get on the show. And I try to support and defend the Constitution in conversations and everything else. Now, the funny thing about this is people look at, and especially nowadays, people look at oaths and affirmations as being disposable. It's kind of like marriage. You know, back in the day, marriage was something that shouldn't have been taken lightly, and divorce was something that was, you know, relatively unthinkable in certain circles. Even today, it's frowned upon in most, like in the Catholic religion, it's kind of frowned upon. This goes back to the original idea that when you make an oath and you mean it and you keep it, this goes back to the principles and the standards of Americans in society back in those days. Nowadays, we have a throwaway society. You make an oath, doesn't matter if you break it or not. I mean, after all, there's no punishment for it. You make an oath to your wife in marriage, yeah. If you cheat, nah, no big deal. You just get a divorce. It doesn't matter. And if you look at our Hollywood types, they are all embodying that. In fact, I think I heard at one point that the shortest marriage ever was something like less than 10 minutes. Like they got married and they immediately got divorced. I don't even know how that's possible in terms of the paperwork. They must have already had it drawn up before they even finished the marriage ceremony. But this is the attitude that we have in society today, is that just because something doesn't work, you throw it away. This is wrong. This is a societal change that needs to happen. We need to, and again, it shows up everywhere. I mean, it used to be that if you shook hands on a deal, then you were bound by that deal. And we had lawyers get involved, and now you need a 15, 20, 100-page contract. Some places it's even longer, 1,000-page contract in order to seal a deal. And all of that is dealt with by our own individual principles. We also need to understand that sooner or later, we are going to pay a price. That everything, what goes around comes around. Everything has a positive and a negative to it. In my case, any of my sins, anything that I have done wrong, will come out when I go to meet my Maker. And I will have to answer for those sins. And I am fully aware of that. But I enter into that contract knowing that I'm not perfect and that I am going to err, meaning ERR. But I still try to keep my promises and my principles intact. And it's this kind of thing that is lost in society today. And it's this kind of thing that needs to come back in order to save our nation. And that, I believe, is rooted in religious principles and religious morals. Okay. So, I have a couple of other articles here that I want to bring to you. And the first one here actually just popped, believe it or not, it just popped yesterday. I was kind of interested about that. I don't know if anybody is aware of the fact that even though Katie Hobbs in Arizona was named governor, Kari Lake has not given up on this. And in fact, Kari Lake has brought a lawsuit in order to try and prevent Katie Hobbs from taking over as the governor of Arizona. Now, what's interesting about this is a judge actually contacted both of them and their lawyers and basically said, hey, this Tuesday, which of course was last Tuesday, I want both of you to appear in a virtual court, okay, into a virtual court in order and to talk about this, okay? Well, I found this article in the Post Millennial, and it's a short article, but let me go ahead and just bring it up so that you guys can see. She, now I don't know if it's a she or a he, but they appeared in court in the Lake versus Hobbs election case. And apparently the emergency hearing was ordered on Monday by Judge Peter A. Thompson of the Arizona Superior Court in Maricopa County, and marks the latest development in the lawsuit filed by Lake contesting the results of the 2022 general election. Okay, this is according to the Arizona Sun-Times. Now, the hearing apparently was scheduled for 11 Pacific Standard Time. But apparently there were so many people who were interested in this thing that they had technical delays, which Carrie Lake tweeted out and said she can't even get into the court hearing meeting, or her attorneys can either, because the Microsoft Teams notification window says the meeting lobby is full. So apparently they had so many people who were interested in this, which rightfully so, that they ended up overloading the system. And then I guess during the hearing, they were informed, both Lake and Hobbs were informed of the next steps being taken in the case. And according to the Arizona Sun-Times, both parties will have until Thursday, December 15th, which is tomorrow, to file their motions to dismiss, and oral arguments are set to be held the following Monday. And evidence hearings have also been scheduled for December 21st and December 22nd. So this obviously is going to be a big deal during and right before Christmas, and also during the Christmas New Year's holiday for everybody. Now, Carrie Lake apparently has alleged that the number of illegal votes cast in Arizona's general election on November 8th far exceeds the 17,117 vote margin between the two of them. And witnesses who were present show hundreds of thousands of illegal ballots infected the election in Maricopa County. Lake states that this lawsuit puts an end to any doubt that our elections, especially in Maricopa County, are rigged, and massive reforms are needed if the public is ever to trust the results again. She suggested that her team has filed one of the strongest election lawsuits in history. Like I said, this was a short one, but the thing about it is it's something that we're going to have to watch very carefully moving forward. As you know, I've said on this program multiple times that the biggest nationwide, and again, that's the key, nationwide thing is the interference of Twitter and in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. There was a poll that came out that actually 70% plus of people do agree that the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story affected the outcome of the 2020 elections. Now, that being said, keep in mind, I'm not dismissing, and I don't want to say that I'm dismissing anything dealing with mail-in balloting, ballot harvesting, voting machine issues, those kinds of things. But on an extremely large scale would be difficult to prove because of the fact that each individual state has their own little differences in terms of how they do the voting. But that being said, on a large national scale, the takeover of Twitter and the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, not only on Twitter, but also on, Facebook and several other places, has definitely caused a big, huge cause for concern. And that leads me into my next article, which is that Elon Musk's Twitter files that he's been printing out. And keep in mind, we've had, I think, 5 dumps that have gone through. And apparently the House GOP is now weighing whether or not they want to initiate a congressional investigation. Now, to be honest with you, I personally think there isn't even a question as to whether or not this is going to occur, because of the fact that even if you take out the whole free speech aspect, and it's shown just in one aspect that the Twitter insiders, didn't actually collaborate with the government. I mean, let's just put that onto suspension. They did. We know they did. We just have to, get a little bit further proof, but we know they did. But that being said, if we suspend that connection, it still means that Twitter, as well as Facebook and any other, did an in-kind donation to the Democrat National Committee, as well as the Biden campaign in particular, for suppressing that story. Now, for those of you that don't understand what I mean by that, whenever you do something for a political campaign, whether it's you just simply talk about them, you support them, you create things that helps support them, that is what's called an in-kind contribution. So rather than giving money, you are actually giving goods and services to that campaign in lieu of providing a monetary contribution to the campaign. Well, the challenge here is that the Federal Elections Commission is going to have to take a closer look at how this affected that campaign. By doing this, they essentially provided an in-kind contribution into the 2020 election. And that by itself is criminal. You step that one step further and you get into the whole First Amendment free speech debate. And that is a, albeit bigger, but a secondary aspect on this. Okay. And yes, I don't think it's just Twitter. I think it's everybody, because if you recall, there were pictures floated around about when Obama had dinner with all of the heads of all of the social media big tech companies. And so you can't tell me that those people did not continue their relationship after that. There's also, Tucker Carlson actually broke an interesting angle to this. What happened if the intel communities, like the DNI, like the CIA, actually used social media to track people online? Now, I personally, looking at it, I would say, hey, that is open source intelligence, or called OSINT. But if they colluded with them, that's another aspect, especially if they had access into back-end accounts. And these are Americans, by the way, which we are supposed to be, according to the Constitution, secure in our papers, our private papers, and so on and so forth. So this is, a lot of people kind of laugh at this and think, this is a big nothing burger, especially those on the left. But this is probably one of the biggest stories. This is bigger than Watergate. And I've said it multiple times, and I'm going to keep saying it. This is bigger than Watergate. This is bigger than any kind of Russian collusion hoax. This is bigger than any of the Mar-a-Lago conversation or anything like that, even if any of that comes true, which it won't. But even if anything of that comes true, this is much, much bigger and much, much deeper. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is that even though the GOP, House GOP, is weighing a congressional investigation into this, there is a current case that is occurring right now between the Missouri and Louisiana attorneys general suing the United States in federal court, okay, for exactly this: suppression of information and speech of individual people. Well, now that the Twitter dumps have happened, guess what? The Missouri AG issues a preservation of evidence demand for the Fed's communication with Twitter. So they're starting to take note, and they are actually issuing Elon Musk, which, honestly, I don't see why Elon wouldn't turn over that information. And it goes even farther than that, because once Twitter, if you looked at the last Twitter dump, once Twitter got a hold of the fact that they could kick Donald Trump off, they immediately started looking at all of the, quote, COVID-19 misinformation, which we are now starting to find out is true. That the misinformation was actually the real information. And by the way, the super governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, announced just within the last 24 hours that he has asked the Supreme Court of Florida to open up a grand jury investigation into all COVID-19 injuries. So it's the next couple of years, honestly, is really going to be interesting. Now, granted, I have to admit the wheels of justice turn slow, but believe it or not, they actually do turn. And like I've pointed out in multiple occasions, that it may not be the end result that we're necessarily after, but that discovery phase, the phase of discovery and being able to investigate and bring out the evidence, that is where the value actually is here. And I honestly believe that Ron DeSantis, as much as everybody on the left would love to see a Ron DeSantis Trump showdown, I don't think it's going to happen, because I have a feeling that Ron DeSantis is going to take all 4 years of his governorship that he just got and use it to go after all of these people and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. If the federal government won't do it, I think the state of Florida will. And that's going to put a big target on Ron DeSantis's back. But you know what? I don't think he cares. It's going to be interesting to watch all of this. All right. Now, one other thing that came out, which I want to talk about, I've got a few minutes left here. One of the other things that found out, and yes, buddy, I am technically still on YouTube, although I might probably get kicked for that one, for that last discussion. But anyway, one other thing that's kind of interesting is that Democrat voters, there was a poll taken, or a Rasmussen telephone online survey, that Democrat voters are much more in favor of social media censoring misinformation than of stopping politically biased censorship. And this is no surprise. This is no surprise at all, to be honest with you. 3/4 of all the U.S. voters, likely voters, and this is, again, based off of the ones that were polled, believe that social media companies like Facebook are censoring content because of political bias. And 3/4 of Democrat voters in particular agree with that. But the Democrat voters are much less likely to want Congress to do anything about it, and much more concerned about the so-called misinformation posted on social media sites. So the latest Rasmussen reports, National Telephone and Online Survey, finds that 77% of likely U.S. voters in total and 74% of Democrat voters believe that it's likely that social media companies such as Facebook, Twitter, etc., censor news and commentary because of political bias. More than half, 52% of all voters think it is very likely, but only 39% of Democrat voters think it's highly likely. Fully 72% of all voters call politically biased social media censorship a problem, including half, 49%, who say it's a very serious problem. Among Democrats, however, fewer, 63%, believe it's a problem, with just 31% citing it as a very serious one. Now, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is one of America's greatest precepts is the ability to speak freely, whether it's in print, whether it's on video like I am, whether it's just standing out in the town square. Okay. This is an example of what I'm talking about in terms of the breakdown of America's principles. We used to stand up for things like this. Yes, there might be speech out there that we don't like, but that doesn't mean that we should suppress it. I mean, I don't like what Kanye says, or sorry, Ye says, or Ye, whichever way you want to call it, says about, Jewish people. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to stand up and say that he needs to be, I'm not going to stand up and say that he needs to be censored because of it. Okay. So honestly, I mean, Democrats are definitely on the wrong side of this one. They are definitely on the wrong side of this particular fight. And I think they're going to find it out, but we need to get back to that whole American precept of understanding what our Constitution actually contains and how it's supposed to be written and interpreted. Okay. On the Hunter Biden, and this is the last story for tonight, but on the Hunter Biden situation, give me just a second. Apparently, even though they initially came out and said it was Russian disinformation, and they came out and said that, oh, it's made up, not just Russian disinformation, but it's also made up. It's a Republican nothing burger. It's it's falsehood. It's misinformation. It's made up, so on and so forth. Well, I hate to tell you this, folks, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And by that, I mean that Hunter Biden's allies, according to this report by Hot Air, Hunter Biden's allies are going around intimidating witnesses. So essentially, Hunter Biden has a bunch of people that are going around, like, for an example, the lawyer, and I'm trying to find his name here. There's a lawyer, Kevin Morris, who apparently went and paid off Hunter Biden's $2.8 million in back taxes. Okay. But then he's also going around and is telling people that they're going to be brought into lawsuits, potential lawsuits, over defamation, claims of defamation. Yeah, they're going to be pushing to try and keep people out of this. We need to be aware of this and understand that if it really was, if they really did nothing wrong and they really didn't have any information, so like if it was provable that the laptop was, nothing was made up, et cetera, and they had the ability to prove it, they wouldn't be going around and telling people, if you tell people about it, we're going to defame you. They'd just defame you. I mean, they just would do it. They would bring you into court and they would say, yep, see, this is how it works. This is how, this person's lying, etc. They would prove it in court rather than running around saying, we're going to defame you if you don't shut up. Keep in mind, this is kind of the same idea as the Nicholas Sandmann case, where Nicholas Sandmann actually had a case. This would be like CNN telling Nicholas Sandmann, well, we're going to sue you for blah, 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 whatever it was, for defamation of our character because of the fact that you said that we lied. A person who is not guilty or who is guilty and knows that they can't prove it, doesn't do this kind of thing, running around and intimidating people. You're caught, Hunter. You're caught. We know you're caught. Everybody knows that you did exactly what you did and that you pulled away 10% for the big guy. There is just way too much evidence that is mounting up that you have neglected to bring forth evidence that that your laptop that you left with your signature on the receipt is not yours. and that the pictures that are contained as a part of that laptop are not you. That the emails and text messages that were all a part of the information that was dumped off of that laptop are not yours. I'm sorry, but all this is doing is attempting to cover up the second biggest scandal in modern American history. The first being usurped, of course, and if you were the first, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Hunter, you were the first scandal for quite some time, but you've actually been usurped by the entire idea that the FBI, the CIA, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, governmental entities were trying to suppress the First Amendment, utilizing an outside resource, essentially deputizing social media outlets such as Facebook and Twitter and Google to do their dirty work. And now we have your attempt to cover it up, even though we all know that it's true. I think the day is coming that these people are going to get essentially, hopefully, their due. And honestly, I'm going to tell you too that I think that Fauci is on his way as well. I don't think that Rand Paul is going to let Fauci go. I'm fairly certain Jim Jordan is not going to allow the Hunter Biden laptop to go. I don't think Matt Gaetz is going to allow the Hunter Biden laptop to go. Now, whether or not anything actually pops in and does something criminally, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that we have a serious exposure of corruption across multiple levels of government. And I agree with Dan Bongino, provided that a Republican president gets into the White House, they need to completely clean house, get rid of everyone in all of those organizations, especially the higher ups and middle management. But even some of the line people that are working every day down at the lower levels. All right. That pretty much is what I wanted to share with you tonight, and that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor, if you like the program and the broadcast and what I bring to you, head on over to Rumble in particular and sign up for an account. It's free. Once you get there, look for the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel and subscribe. Like I said, I'm at 450. I'd like to reach 500 soon. The other thing, too, is that if you want to get some Whiskey Musings gear, that is gear with logos and gear with my saying, "When I drink, I think," on it, head on over to store.whiskeymusings.online. That's store.whiskeymusings.online, and put in promo code, all capital letters, Christmas, and get free shipping between now and Christmas Eve. That's my gift to you. Otherwise, I will see you Saturday night right here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.